Welcome, bienvenue. My name is Renee Ketchum, and I am thrilled to welcome you to a conversation on Cara Black's new book, Murder at La Villette. The Fédération des Alliances Françaises encourages you to learn French, live French, and love French with our little video here. AFUSA is the largest Alliance Française network in the world, helping 25,000 learners of French each year. Again, learn French, live French, and love French. A few national events coming up soon. I spoke to Adrian Leeds this morning, and why living in France can cost half as much is going to be a great program. We have our French Cinematheque, an interview with Martin Walker on his new cookbook, and many events. Just go to afusa.org. A few logistics and format. Please stay on mute during the presentation. Stay on speaker view and put all of your questions in the chat. We'll have time at the end of the conversation to look at the chat. If you have any technical issues, sign back in after a couple of minutes using the original Zoom link. This event is being recorded to share on our national AF YouTube channel, and the total runtime is 1 hour. So we are thrilled today to welcome Cara Black, author of 21 books in the New York Times bestselling Aimée Leduc series, as well as the thrillers 3 Hours in Paris and Night Flight to Paris. Cara has received multiple nominations for the Anthony and Macavity Awards. Her books have been translated into German, Norwegian, Japanese, French, Spanish, Italian, and Hebrew. Cara lives in San Francisco with her husband and son and visits Paris frequently. So today we have some great news just announced today from Paris. Cara Black is the recipient of the 2024 Médaille d'Or du Rayonnement Culturel from La Renaissance Française USA for her 2 series of books which take place in Paris, including the Aimée Leduc Mysteries. Félicitations! So after our conversation, we'll bring this up again, but please support your local bookstore and purchase Murder at La Villette at bookshop.org. So welcome, Cara. Again, félicitations for this incredible award from the La Renaissance, and thank you for this really exciting book. So we have a couple of questions, and I know you have some slides. First of all, in this book, and I hope everybody has had a chance to read it, it's really edge of your seat. In this book, there's a lot at stake for Aimée in this 21st investigation. She's a mother, she has a business, she works undercover for the ministry, and has a relationship where things that turn sour. And downright dangerous. Can you talk a little bit about the character of Aimée in this particular book at Murder à la Villette?
Sure, and thank you so much, Renee, and bonsoir, everyone, and bonsoir from France. I'm I'm down in the south, and it's wonderful to say hello. And these are my friend's roses from her garden. I just had to say that. But yes, for Aimée in this book, it's really high stakes for her. She has a daughter, 3 years old, Chloe, who is the love of her life. And Chloe's biological father, Melek, is a good father to Chloe, but it's on his terms. And he's really trying to get them to move up with him to Brittany. And for Aimée, there's this sort of guilt as a mother, and I think a lot of women know as a mother, are you doing the right thing for your child? You know, she's in Paris, she goes to the school around the corner, Aimée has her business there, but would it be better to be out on the farm, you know, by the sea? And so she's wondering if she's being selfish. But Aimée Leduc is, of course, a Parisian or half half French, who likes her cafe at the corner and doesn't think there's many cafes out in the farm field. So, and she also feels that the relationship with Milak had, that train left a long time ago. So, but while this is all boiling in her mind, and her partner, René, is saying, we need to keep the business on track, she is working undercover in a startup in the 19th arrondissement, Northeast Paris. And she's very upset at the toxic work environment in this startup. And so she's dealing with that. She's trying to help a woman who's working there. And things get really dicey, I think, as you were saying, Renee. So that starts right off. She's sort of put in the cauldron. She's a working mother, a single mother, basically, and she is running a business, having a daughter, and actually trying to have a relationship with someone else, too. So
a very contemporary modern woman, I think you could say in a nutshell. So also in this book, you've set the scene. So she's really a boots on the ground kind of character, investigating. Can you share some of her techniques?
Sure. Because Aimée is cut off in this, she has to leave all her family, all her good friends, all her connections behind. She's on her own because she's being chased. There's this cat and mouse hunt through the 19th arrondissement. She can't rely on her usual, her tech gadgets or people. So she has to do, like you said, boots on the ground. She needs to go places. She needs to time things. She needs to see how long it would take and where she could hide. She's got to change her clothes constantly because people will, recognize her. She is doing something that is putting her out of her comfort zone. But there's one person that no one in her circle or any of the police know about, or any, because her phone has been wiretapped. One person who she helped could help her, and no one knows about her. And her name is Isabelle, and she lives and works in a biker tattoo bar by the canal. So of course, Aimée goes there where no one knows her, where no one will ever find her. And so that gave her, that gave a different slant to the story, that Aimée, had helped her and they help each other. And Renee, there actually was a biker tattoo bar by the canal up at the 19th arrondissement. And when I discovered that in research, I had to use it in the story.
So Cara, you in all of your books, as I think all your readers who are on this call, this webinar know, you work with different arrondissements. Why the 19th, and how is the 19th arrondissement a character in and of itself in this book?
Yeah, well, the 19th happened because it was the last arrondissement. I've written about all the others. I've killed people everywhere. So, but I hadn't done it in the 19th. And I didn't know the 19th very well. I knew the Parc Butte Chaumont, and maybe Melissa could pull up a slide of the Parc Butte Chaumont.
Sure, just a moment.
Yeah. It's an old park, Northeast Paris. And when I was doing some research up there, I discovered it had been there we are, there's an old picture. You can see the Belvedere where the temple, you climb up there, and that sort of brown shaded part is the lake. And then there on the back is the small waterfall. And then on the right, there is the grotto, the cave with the big waterfall. And surrounding it is the Petite Ceinture. We can get to that in a minute. But this was originally a quarry. And the gypsum that was mined from this quarry was white, and especially from the park and from the area of the Musaya, the countryside of Paris. They say that the white gypsum was exported to the United States and was used in making the White House. Huh. Who knew? But that's the story I heard many times. So this park was a quarry. And then when they decided, let's make it, because it's very steep and hilly, let's make it, you know, like more of like an English garden and have great views of the hill and build these sort of walking bridges over to the tall part where there's a little temple. And then, Melissa, could you pull up the Petit Ceinture? Because that's sort of ringing it. Oh, there's some more of that. There we are, when the park was built. Yeah. It looks much greener now. And there's the bridge. And of course, there's the Petit Ceinture, which is the old train line around Paris that now is sort of like a high line. You know, you can walk on it. And in the story, Aimée Leduc escapes through the Petit Ceinture. So I found out a lot of things about the park. I thought it was a great place to set a story. I learned so much about the 19th arrondissement that I never knew. There's a small Russian Orthodox chapel that is there that's hidden away. It used to be a German Lutheran church in the 1900s. I discovered that there are 30 synagogues in the 19th arrondissement. Now, some are small, but there are 30 Orthodox synagogues. And I never knew that there was a lot of Jewish community up there. And there's a very large Jewish girls' school. And that was totally foreign to me. It also joins near a North African district, and they are right next to each other. And I saw a lot of living, you know, they lived together. There was a lot of harmony. And I thought, that is so interesting. And I really wanted to know more about it, how people live day to day. I was walking on the street, I was watching people, and I would see at a corner grocery store, you know, run by a North African. He would be he'd say hello to a woman who was, you know, going to the synagogue. And he said, I haven't seen you yesterday. I thought you had a doctor's appointment. She goes, oh, thank you for asking, but it was changed to today. But, you know, and I realized that these people kind of have each other's backs. You know, it's a small area where they live. And I was just fascinated by that. And I thought, I really hope to bring that to people's attention, that sometimes people do get along, you know, not that there's not enough, you know, trouble in the world. I'm not denying that. But so I found these things, and a lot of times it's about walking and talking and sitting in the park and listening to people in a cafe. And then, of course, all the history there, because it was, you know, it's right on the canal where, you know, the barges used to come in, and a lot of commerce, and a lot very immigrant neighborhood as well. So I can tell you lots about it, about the sugar factories where they made biscuits. You know, it's always been an area of commerce where people, you know, had factories, warehouses, people came to work and they could live there. And I think until quite recently, maybe still, the 19th arrondissement is a district where you can live with your family and still live in Paris, you know, because of the rents. So, you know, it's a little bit further out, but I thought that was really interesting, and that, you know, there's families. So I discovered a lot of things that I really, really never knew.
So that sort of answers our next question about people and different kinds of people that you met in the 19th, and that all these different people from different parts of the world live, you actually, as
Yes,
you just said, actually like each other and manage to live together as families.
right.
Was
I mean, it
it
really,
surprised you? And did you meet anybody
yes.
that surprised you?
Yes, there were. So when I was doing a lot of research, I went to I know a doctor who was a médecin légiste at the mortuary in Paris. And I said, I want to meet some people in the 19th arrondissement. And he said, well, you know, I'm from the 6th arrondissement, but I'm working there was a COVID clinic in the Saint-Quatre, if you know the Arts Center, this huge center, the 101, And now it has a yoga studio. It has a great little restaurant. People has a library, and they were doing a COVID clinic and treating people. And he said, I work with two nurses, home health care nurses, who work in the district, who know people, who treat people at home, and they're working with me here. Why don't you come and meet them? And maybe they could introduce you to some people who grew up in the arrondissement, you know, who've lived here. Um, and I did. I met them. They're two sisters, and they were a little leery of me. And they said, "Well, since the doctor recommended you, okay." And so they introduced me to several older people that they would make home healthcare visits to. I got to meet them, to hear how they grew up in the district, how they raised their families. And what was so incredibly moving was last week when I was in Paris, I got to see them again at a cafe, and I got to give them a copy of the book with their names in it. And they were so pleased because I said, "You really helped me so much, you know, this personal introduction." So I gave the two sisters the book in the cafe, and they were like, "Are you serious? You know, I can't read English, but my daughter can. I'll have her read it for me." But I just, that's kind of thing happens. And, you know, people know that you're, you know, they want you, they want to help me. They want to make sure I do a good job to help me understand. So I've been so lucky with that. And yeah.
That's wonderful that everybody who has been part of each arrondissement has been there to guide you to the actuality and the authenticity of each part of Paris. You know, there in this particular book, you obviously, you know, we know what happens to Melac in the beginning, and I have another question about that. But what about the people that work with Aimée? I mean, you don't really, and not, it's not until sort of later on, well, not in sort of the middle of the book, you get to know Renee a little bit more. But what about the other character of Sage? These are obviously very important characters to her professional life, but and when they sort of pop up strategically. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Well, thanks for asking about Saj. Everybody likes him. And I got someone sent me an email. I think I saw Saj on the street, you know, a man with dreadlocks and over in the left bank. Um, but I realized when I was writing that, of course, Aimée Leduc, my first book, she couldn't do everything alone, nor would she want to. So she needs her, you know, helpers, contacts, people that can do things that give her time to do her investigations. So Renee came about because she needed a partner in the business, and he's a computer hacker. And then, of course, there was too much work for the two of them. So they found Saj, who spends part of the year in India and in an ashram, and he's meditating, and he's always trying to get Aimée to slow down and breathe. He's trying to purify the office, and she's like, "Oh, enough already." But she actually, he says, "Your chakras are never aligned correctly," and so she's like, "Oh," but sometimes she actually does it when he's not watching. But so I wanted someone who sort of, you know, I don't want to say exemplified, but sort of was like people I've met who, you know, have alternative lifestyles, you know. And of course, Saj is a computer hacker extraordinaire, and he was so good at what he did that the government, they put him in prison, and then they realized he was so valuable, they let him come out and work for the Ministry of Finance, you know, part-time. So which I heard actually happens quite as it is kept, because they have, you know, incredible talent and it should be channeled correctly. So Saj came about because he was needed, and also Saj, you know, in some books he has a little more of a role, more bigger role. It depends on the story. Um, and Renee is has this, yeah, he has a role in this story, and he gets baptized, right, in Brittany, and you know, he's a very, he loves to dress, you know, impeccably. He has handmade Charvet shirts, you know, and of course, when he's baptized by a seagull in Brittany, that sort of really puts the kibosh on his day. But and he loves his cars. He had a Citroen DS, right? The old big marshmallowy kind of car. And of course, that was rammed in an accident. So now he's using a Mercedes with government plates that he and Aimée got in their last investigation in murder in Bel Air. So he loves cars. He's 4 foot tall, so he's vertically challenged. So he has special, manipulators for his feet and driving and yeah, and he's secretly in love with Aimée Leduc as well.
Well, both of the characters as supplemental characters are really important. I mean, from the very beginning in this book, she's always reminding herself to breathe. It's very present moment. It's very wellness oriented and very, it feels very current within the way we're all supposed to be slowing down our lives and taking a deep breath. How is, but before we have more specific questions, and then I have one specific question. How is history relevant in your series? You have a lot of loyal readers here. How do you want them to sort of look at this series, the Aimée Leduc series, globally in terms of a historic takeaway?
Well, that's a great question. Well, history is part of everything I discover when I'm in Paris. I mean, I'm walking on a 17th century street, and under that is maybe an old Roman, Roman path. Not that anyone wants to get away from history, but I feel that's the character of Paris. That's why we love Paris. I mean, we see the Haussmann buildings, but then you see a 17th century Hotel Particulier, and that's what we love. We love that the layers of history are still visible, or we can see them. I was just walking on Ile Saint Louis by Aimée Leduc's Hotel Particulier a few days ago, and I was looking at the balcony, and it's the old Hotel Lausanne, that's the one. And someone said, "Why does Aimée live here?" And I go, "Because that's where I would like to live." So why not, right? So I get to do that with my character, and she has the most wonderful view, I think, in the world. And history is just part of it. She inherited this from her grandfather. It has archaic plumbing. The fuses blow out immediately. But there's such a charm and a sense of the past, and yet it's lived in, and I love that. And so I think the history of each book or each arrondissement that I write about has a certain flavor. Every part of Paris has a flavor. The 6th arrondissement, the parts of the left bank are different from the 18th up in Montmartre, and they all have distinct ambience. We feel that when we're there, and that past informs them even today. That's why we love Paris. The past is there informing us, even though we're contemporary people. And that just I think that to bring that out, and the history of the people that have lived there as well. And Paris, it started out at Notre Dame and Ile de la Cité, and then expanded out like a snail shell, right? And each king put up another wall and knocked that one down and another wall, and each one incorporated a village, and that village was, they had a special maybe skill. I know when I was writing Murder in the Bastille, I learned so much about the convents that were out there, and that the religious had so much power that they had the ebonists, the woodworkers, build all the furniture for the convents. And the king was upset because he said, only I can, commission the woodworkers, to do that. It's by royal decree. And the nuns got their way at the end. But, so it was this big furniture making district in the Bastille. And I never knew about that, but it was because it was close to the Seine, and those narrow passages, would be where they can bring the lumber up from the barges in the Seine. And so it was kind of a natural thing. So all that history, from each district, Montmartre, they had vineyards, or they have vineyards, small, they each have a flavor, and they contributed something to Paris. So, and and like the 19th, a lot of the quarries, right, and the gypsum and the limestone came from there. So I hope I'm answering. And what do I want readers to get from it? To, I don't know, appreciate, when you're staying in one part of Paris, that you have a sense of it. And, I would be honored if you had a sense and knew something about it from my story, and and you would find out more, you know, um, because I think the past informs the present. Not that we're mired in it, but that's who we are too. That's what we hear from our parents and our grandparents. And so, yeah, an appreciation of the past, I suppose.
It's such an interesting comment because it maybe and probably everyone here would agree that maybe that's how Paris embraces all of us. It's almost like an anthropological memory or something. A piece of us comes from a lot, we're all part of history, and there's so much history in Paris, and Paris will always be Paris, but maybe that's how Paris embraces us. So I also was curious about your technique and research in terms of the way your books read. I'm very involved with film, and reading your books, there's a very cinematic quality that you can, again, you're reading, but you're really seeing. And especially in this book, because she is not seeing a whole lot. She can't see very well. And some of her techniques of establishing her sense of place are interesting. But I think we'd all really appreciate learning what your technique of writing is to create this vision that we all take from your books that's got such clarity.
Oh, thank you. Well, I try to think, because I am on the ground, I'm walking, I'm looking, I'm jumping on a bus, I'm sitting in a cafe, or I go to the park. I really try to think, you know, I put myself in Amy's heels, or usually, or depending if she's wearing high heels or her boots. I try to stand on that street and feel what Amy would be feeling. What is the air like? Is it cloudy? Is the sun shining? Is the wind blowing? What is she near? Is she smelling, fresh baked bread from the boulangerie? Is she, hearing the noise? Is there a transport strike? Is there a demonstration on the street like we had last week, May Day? Um, what does that sound like, and where you are when you're hearing it? Are you at Place de la République with everyone and it was very peaceful, by the way, everyone chanting, or further down and people were singing, and it was, maybe it changed, the vibe changed as it got further to Bastille. But how would it feel where you're standing? What are the echoes like? What are people doing? What's going on in the world? What is she rushing to? Is she trying to, catch a bus? Is she, going to do something? And also, why is she there? What is her reason for being, let's, for example, in the 19th arrondissement? Well, she was working undercover. So she has a persona that she has to adopt in the workplace. And then she goes home and it's different. She just wants to get home and, see her child, go to bed, and do all this. And so it's like where she is in her life, but what is she feeling? What is it like to be on the street? What are people doing? Is there, and so that's what I try to do. Stand on the street, or in a museum, or I don't know, in a restaurant. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? How do things taste? Use the sensory detail for her. And what is her mission? Why is she here? Why is she going down there? What has she just learned? What will propel her to the next chapter? What is she going to do next? What does she have to, who does she have to go and interview? So I kind of try to do that as though I'm kind of like a reporter in her life. What are you feeling, and seeing and thinking, and does she put things together? Because there needs to become a point where she's taking clues and putting things together, and then she makes a false step, right? Takes a wrong clue, the red herring, and goes in the wrong direction and has to come back and put it together. So that's the interesting thing of what I find when I'm writing, is getting all that information and then having her maybe take a wrong path and going, oh, and Renee saying, no, 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 let's do this, or this doesn't make sense if we did that. So there's that other component, especially with mysteries. You've got to have people tie it together and try to pull these disparate threads and make sense of it. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. But in that same vein, technology seems to play and really has a very strong role. She's obviously an investigator and she's working undercover. But I would think that the technology would have evolved in the whole series. Do you have a specific person that you work with that keeps you up to date? I mean, some of the things in this book was like, wow, some new techniques, and you're not making it up. So do you have a really good contact in the world of technology? Or
I
crime
do.
technology, I should say.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have in San Francisco, my neighbor he moved a few blocks away. He lived on my street. He's French, and he worked in Paris in IT in the late 90s and early 2000s. So he's my go-to golden guy. Because he'll always say, Cara, remember Renee would use a router here. Remember routers, or this and that. So he kind of keeps me honest. And we're in San Francisco. I can go down to Silicon Valley and there's a big computer museum, and I can see what kind of phone Aimée would have in 2001, 2002. I mean, I know a lot of us remember Nokia's, and I could see what model she had because they have all these things. So I can also verify. So I do have those things available, and I also have friends who are police, and I will say, because now, I mean, this is 2024, do you know anyone who was working at this time who was, what kind, could they talk to me about what kind of, computers they use in the police force? It's very different from now. So I do have that, chance. I can consult people. I'm very lucky. So
It's fascinating. The technology that you use in this book is amazing. I also just would be very interested in how the character of Aimée resonates with women and how she has morphed from, earlier on in the series to today, where she's, we know she has kind of a punk rock hairdo, but she's got the classic Chanel red lipstick. She's got her Longchamp bags and her clothes. She's a little bit of punk, a little bit of couture. Is she more French than American? Do you see her? How are you translating her, and how does the character resonate? I mean, it's very cinematic, but you don't find out until a certain part in the book when she's changing her clothes into a wig that she's got this punky hair, and it's not until she's exhausted that the Rouge de Chanel comes to the rescue. So I'd love to see how she resonates with your female audience.
well, yeah, she's a fashionista, and everyone keeps saying, well, we hope that Chloe is going to be a fashionista, and I said, well, with Aimée as a mother, of course she will be. But yeah, women like it. I will say men read the books. And one time, and this, I always bring this quote up. One time a man came up to me, actually in Paris, at a reading, and he said, my wife reads your books, and she likes Aimée. And I said, oh, thank you. And he goes, I read them too. And I like Aimée. And I said, oh, thank you. And he goes, you know why? And I go, no, why? And he goes, because she never lets up and she never dresses down. And this was from a man. And I said, can I remember that and use that? He goes, of course. So I thought men appreciate her too, her fashion sense. But I don't know. I think Aimée is someone that I would love to be able to. I have no fashion sense. I would love to be able to throw a few two things on and look effortlessly chic and two-souled and just perfect, and but casual like Parisian women. And I think personally, I think a lot of us would like to have that look. But she's evolved too, because she's now a mother and she has a 3-year-old, and so she also has to think that way. So and she's torn, with her life, her relationships, her jobs, her daughter? Is she doing any of them right? Is she, is she? So I think that makes her contemporary, because I think probably women always, deal with that. And I think just the fashion that, if I lived in Paris, I know I would be, of course, trying to emulate her a lot. And I have a friend who has this incredible talent. She will go to any, I don't know, like a Salvation Army or Emmaus in Paris, and she will go in a bin and she will find this incredible, like a Givenchy, slightly worn, jacket. Maybe it needs a button or two, or a little mending, but it's Givenchy, and it's gorgeous. And you put it on with jeans, and you dress it up. And I was like, well, Aimée Leduc will have that talent because I do not have that gene. So I kind of like that too. I hope I'm answering your question, but fashion is part of who she is too, and I think that's a nice thing. I mean,
Well, and in this book, I mean, I don't know how she actually managed to get any clothes on. She was so exhausted. And but again, as some of the research, I've done some reading and listened to some interviews of yours. You refer to her, or she has been referred to as Aimée has been referred to as sort of Audrey Hepburn with a little bit of Sherlock Holmes. And I think anybody can attest to the fact that Audrey Hepburn will always be modern and always chic and always, um, a very modern woman. So before we open it up to questions, I just wanted to I'm just a little curious. We know in the beginning of the book, so I'm not giving anything away, it happens right away, that Malak is murdered. And he's her rival, her lover, he's the father of her child. So what is her future
Sure.
moving forward as a writer with him? He's gone, he's out of the picture.
Sure. And Melissa, can we pull up that slide with the book looking over the canal? There is the murder location. There is where Malak bites it. Well, yeah, and then the next slide, please, with the book on the cafe counter. Oh, yeah, there. I forgot the staircase. That was last week. And I just had to have my book in Paris on a cafe and the zinc counter by croissants and espresso. Yeah, what is the future for her? Well, I don't know, because I've written about all the arrondissements, and her life will be different. Chloe's life will be different because her biological father is gone. I really don't know. I can only say right now it's a mystery. But I have written another book, which I could talk about. It's we have the tentative pub date next late summer 2025, and we have a few working titles, but I don't really want to say it because it's all up in the air. But it sort of deals with Aimée's world, because as you brought out, there are characters in Aimée's world. There's Saj, the part-time hacker, Renee, her partner, the man that she's seeing, Loic Bellon. There's Martine, her best friend. There's Morbier, her godfather, who was her father's first partner in the police. And there's Aimée's grandfather, Claude, who's passed away, but who was referred to in several books. And actually, the next story is about, we always know Aimée remembers growing up that her father would take her to this cafe and leave her to do her homework on the banquette, and he would go upstairs. And she never knew why he was, away, and he would come back. And later, she realized that this was her grandfather went to visit his mistress. And of course, this, she didn't know this as a child, and her father was always upset. And so I thought, I really liked writing Claude. A lot of people really love Claude as Aimée's grandfather. I get a lot of emails about Claude. They love him, the bon vivant, who goes to the auction houses, who teaches Aimée to follow her heart. And so I said to myself, who is Claude's mistress? What is their story? Where did that happen? Why is it always in this cafe? and voila, I wrote the story. So it's about the woman who is Claude's mistress. We meet Claude as a very young man, and that's all I can say. But so it's sort of Aimée, of course, is not born yet, and Aimée's father is just born. So we sort of see part of Aimée's family and world in a different era. So, and there's crime, of course, there's crime, but it's a different time. So, so that felt it could because it felt sort of bittersweet to me to write all the to maybe finish Aimée's series. I don't know if I have, but I felt like it was bittersweet. But maybe it was time to try something, and I thought I really liked being in Aimée's world, and there was a lot to explore. So, who's Claude's mistress? What is their story? How did this happen? What did it mean? So, that's it.
Well, we're on the edge of our seats. I hope everybody is penciled in late summer 2025, and hopefully we'll be together again on Zoom. But let's see if we have any questions from our audience. Hang on a second. Melissa, do you see? Hang on.
Yeah, Cindy has a comment. She loved the book. And Cara,
Thank you.
she went on a tour with you and Donna 6 years ago.
Mm.
And she would be interested in seeing how the Olympics in the 18th will affect the 19th arrondissement. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Don't
It's a,
when we came into near Port La Chapelle or passing, the new brand new pool is built just across from the Stade de France, you know, across the Periphery. I think it's the largest pool in Paris, or in, I'm sorry, in Europe. And it looks wonderful. But you know, I remember passing that. So that was at the 18th, probably the 18th. I don't know, but there was just so much construction, you know, everywhere in Paris. So I can't. I just remember seeing the new pool, and they're putting up a lot of bleachers, you know, in Place de la Concorde, and you know where the events are. So I can't tell you how it affected the 19th exactly because I didn't see a lot of but there's construction all over. So I don't know if that answers your question. Oh, and today the torch, the Olympic torch just landed in Marseille. Did you see that? Oh
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exciting.
So we have another question, which is also on my list. When Cindy toured with you, apparently you mentioned, Cara, that there's a possible movie upcoming on one of your books. Is anything coming up with that? Or my question as well was, have you ever thought of developing a series based on the books?
Sure. And I want to thank you for asking, Cindy, and thank you for refreshing my memory when we met. Well, they are optioned to an actress who has, but you know, optioned, right? You I don't really know what that. I know it means that they have an option for a period of time when they try to get, you know, development going. So she has the option, and then of course last year was the writers' strike and all that, so that put everybody behind. So we extended the option till I think June or something, and we'll see if she wants to renew. But I would love this to go on the big any screen. Actually in Aix-en-Provence today, we couldn't walk down one street because they were filming, and all the, you know, all the whole block was taken up with the booms and the people, and it was a man and a woman walking up the street, and I said, this is a police show. I can tell because he was walking like a detective and talking into his phone, and they were going like this, and he was like, you know, and I was like, oh, he's a detective. What a gorgeous place to solve crime in Aix-en-Provence. But I would love it because I too see that, you know, there's so much visual that could just be captured in Paris. I mean, what a great venue. I would just love it, and I hope that she could make something with it, but we don't know. It'd be
I think
nice.
you have a lot of viewers because of the way the books are written. She could literally just pick up on the visuals that you create in each arrondissement.
Thank
One other
you.
question we have from Sharon. Your work is sprinkled with a lot of French. What is your background as far as knowing the French language?
Well, I learned French in a French Catholic school with nuns who were, some of them were French, kind of old school. So we learned old school French. And when I first went to Paris, I was like, people were like, you're using words we haven't used since the 1900s, mademoiselle. So I mean, the nuns were from another era and taught us sort of old French. So I learned French, and then I found when I think I took an Alliance Française class. I got more current with my language. And actually, I passed the Alliance Française today in Aix when we were driving back. I saw it. I was like, oh, this is so prophetic. um, but I think when people speak on the streets too is different. It's more current, it's more fast. And I need to, and of course I'm talking, and when I talk with police, we're not talking art and philosophy, okay? We're talking bullet spatter, we're talking, different investigation techniques. So there's different kinds of French that I try to use, in different situations. Um, so yeah, that was my education.
This is a great question. From Marcia Stevenson. I find Aimé's mother fascinating. Will we possibly learn more about her in a future book? She's an amazing character. She really is.
Yeah, I it's a mystery. We may or we may not. Sydney has a mind of her own, and I think getting to what you asked earlier about Aimé's sort of changing over the series, I think Aimée is realizing in when she sees her mother in this story and her daughter that maybe her mother did these things that she's always blamed her for, that maybe to save her, to protect her. And that was the best she could do under the circumstances. And so Aimée is also in a way realizing in this story, I'm doing what my mother did. I'm pushing her, I'm leaving her alone to keep her safe until I find out who killed her father and can not go to prison, because I will be jailed if I don't find out who did this because I've been set up. So she's also maybe in a way doing that to her daughter, and she doesn't like that, and that's an understanding for her. Maybe this is a growth for her, that how it appears isn't always what you think. So Sydney has some depths that might be revealed later on, why she really did this, what she got involved in, and how maybe that was to protect Aimée.
She's definitely a fascinating character, and it maybe allows Aimée to sort of reconcile her mother's behavior, because she, again, as you just said, she's having to do some of the same kinds of things. But at the same time, at the end of the book, you really see how the love that Sydney has for her granddaughter, and how that resonates with Aimée. So she becomes more accessible, I think.
Yeah,
Melissa, do you see any more questions in the chat?
No, I think that was the last one.
Well, I think, Cara, we're going to put the slide back on as to how you can purchase the book. We are so
sure.
grateful that you have given us the time, and we are so honored that we were able to announce today this wonderful award from La Renaissance Française, the La Médaille d'Or, that you
Oh,
will learn
that's
more about moving forward. This is the book again where you can purchase the book. And we look forward to keeping up and hearing about your next book and learning more about this
thank
wonderful
you.
book that you were given today.
Thank you. I'm so honored. I'm very excited, and thank you so much for hosting me and for all the work you do, and Melissa for putting this together, and you, Renee, putting your time in, and everyone at the Alliance. Thank you so much. And to the Renaissance,
Well, thank you, and congratulations on your new grandson.
Thank
We're
you.
great news, and again, thank you, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Okay, bonsoir.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.